Hello and welcome everybody to Craft the Perfect Resume and Cover Letter from Remote Jobs. My name is Jerry Lee and I am so happy to welcome you to today's session at Remote Works 2024. I'm super excited to share with you a little bit about my background, but most importantly, how you all can create your perfect resumes and cover letters to stand out in today's competitive job searching market. And without further ado, let's dive straight into the presentation. So before we dive into the materials, I wanted to quickly run you through all my background. So a little bit about me is I come from a first generation low income background, and growing up through and going through college, I never had any of the traditional resources of finding a job. My parents didn't teach me how to write a resume. My friends around me didn't. We're all starting off on the same foot. And I really felt like I didn't have a leg up in the process. But it was through mentors, student organizations, and quite honestly, getting lucky enough to be surrounded by the right groups of people that have led me to getting multiple internships throughout my career and most importantly, landing me jobs in my career. So I started college back in 2013, where I came in with a blank slate, with nothing, with not knowing anything about the job search process. But it was through my work at the Career Center where the career advisors took me under their wing and they truly taught me the importance and value of learning about the job search. That's where I first got my toes wet into the whole field of job search. And as a result, throughout the next 3 years of my college career, I had done about 6 internships across tech companies, private equity, investment banking, and consulting. And this landed me my first full-time job at Google back in 2017 as an analyst. As soon as I joined my analytics role at Google, the first thing I wanted to do outside of me doing my core job was I asked my team, hey, how else can I help out beyond my core job? I specifically want to help out with recruiting. And so that's what my team said, okay, let's get you interview trained and help you understand how we do things here. And that was the first time I got to know how hiring managers think. How do hiring managers work with recruiters? And how do recruiters work with hiring teams to ultimately make a decision on a candidate? Thankfully, my work had gotten me an early promotion in about a 9-month time frame to a strategist. And from there, 6 months after that, I joined a new team called Strategy in a strategy and operations function. And a year after that, I was promoted again to senior strategy and operations manager. And that at that point was when I was at a critical point in my career where I thought to myself, is Google the long-term home for me? Is that something where I can see myself growing? And unfortunately, despite all the promotions I've gotten, this is the point where I began to realize in my career that my leadership told me, hey, Jerry, we've promoted you quite a bit. We've invested in you quite a bit, but this is the point where we need you to slow down. And I thought to myself, slow down? Well, I don't want to do that. And so I left and joined another company called Lucid, where I was leading their product strategy team. I managed a team of strategy analysts, and the scope was quite broad, where I reported directly to the senior director of strategy and worked very closely with the SVP of product to help roll out and think about product strategy. If there's one unique theme across my entire journey, after rewinding a bit, after my time at Lucid, I left my role at Lucid to start a company called Wonsulting with my co-founder, whom you'll hear right after the session here. And our mission is to turn underdogs into winners. And to date, we've been doing our startup for about 3 years now. We're a team of about 30 people. And myself personally, I have amassed a following of about a little over 2 million people across LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and X. And today I am so excited to share with you a couple learnings that I've had with doing job search myself for over 10, 11 years, to understanding the hiring process of 2 companies of different sizes, and most importantly, helping job seekers get jobs who come from non-traditional backgrounds. And so if that's you and that's what you came here for, I'm excited for you because we're going to talk everything that you need to know about resumes. So without further ado, let's talk about today's agenda. With regards to the resume agenda, with the resume portion, we're going to be talking about the life cycle of a resume. Where does a resume fit in the broader scope of the career conversation? And second is, how do you perfect a resume? What does a good resume look like? And what does a resume that might need a little bit more improvement look like? So let's dive in to the life cycle of a resume. So the first question I have for you all is, who are you designing a resume for? I want you to think about this for a second. If the first thing that comes to your mind is an ATS system, an AI, I'm sorry to say that that is not what you should be designing for. What you should be designing for is our hiring managers and recruiters to look at your resume and be able to make a decision as to whether or not you're qualified for the job in less than 10 seconds. Research and studies have shown that on average, recruiters will spend less than 6 to 10 seconds when reviewing a resume before determining whether or not you move on to the interviews. So keep that in mind as you think about a resume and where it belongs in the recruiting process. And so you might be asking, well, Jared, where does that six seconds come from? Why, right? How does this happen? And so I want to share with you the resume lifecycle. Typically what will happen is the business will say, okay, we need to hire 3 people in marketing. They'll work with a recruiting team internally, or they might hire an external recruiter, or in some cases, the hiring manager themselves become the recruiter. They'll post a job description online, and that's where you see the list of jobs from LinkedIn, Indeed, ZipRecruiter, Monster, and so on and so forth. Then applicants run over to those job applications and click submit and apply as soon as they can. Now, the reason why they do this, what you have to realize from the hiring manager side is that the hiring managers and recruiters are flooded with resumes. They're flooded. On average, they might receive anywhere from about 100 to 1,000 resumes, and they have to make a decision on one person. That's why they might only spend 6 to 10 seconds. Now, I don't personally believe that's the best method, but that's the most common practice today. And so because it's the most common practice today, we have to keep that in mind. They'll review your applications, and then you'll get passed on to the screening process, which is the interview process. And so what you might have heard of this dangerous thing called an ATS, right? You might be this cat here and be like, oh my gosh, Jared, what about the ATS? I don't want to get automatic. I've gotten automatically rejected, right? Well, the fact of the matter is most companies today don't use an automated rejection system. The typical automated rejection that you may get is if you go onto a job description and they might ask you some questions at the bottom. The most common questions they ask you are, do you require a sponsorship or do you have work authorization to work in the local country? And for some companies, they just say, I'm sorry, we can't. We just don't have the ability to sponsor your visa, or you must have work authorization. And in those cases, they might have automated rejection systems where they say, okay, if the user selects, I don't have work authorization, then automatically reject. But by and large, for most other cases, you have to assume that a recruiter, a sourcer, or a hiring manager is reviewing your resume. And so when you hear about things like keyword stuffing or different resume hacks, at the end of the day, you need to make sure to optimize it for a person and not a robot. And so what is an ATS? Let's quickly talk about it. An ATS is a CRM of the recruiting world. And what a CRM is essentially, think about a glorified spreadsheet. A list of all the applicants, what process they're in, the people that they've interviewed in the past, the people that have accepted interviews, so they can run analysis. And they have a better system than a spreadsheet to manage all their candidates, and that's what an ATS is. Most companies don't auto-filter using ATSs. And last but not least, as we think about the word ATS, don't be afraid of it. An ATS is an applicant tracking system. That's what the acronym is for. The word literally implies tracking. It's not automated. It's not, crazy machine learning models in the back end. It's not. So now that we know exactly where where resumes, recruiters, and hiring managers and you as a job seeker fit in, let's talk about creating the perfect resume. Paul Rand said this quote here where he said, "Design is a silent ambassador of your brand," and I absolutely think this is so representative of your resume. Because whatever's on your resume, the first impression that gives, that's essentially what the recruiter has to go off of as to whether or not your resume shows you to be qualified enough for the job. If it's not on your resume, it doesn't exist. I want to say that again. If it's not on your resume, it does not exist. You need to make sure your resume is tailored to a job title and not a job description, where you are showing the skills that is required of that job title. So if you're going for marketing manager, you better have skills that relate to launching campaigns, launching marketing funnel or metrics across a marketing funnel, and so on and so forth. And so I want to pause here for a quick second, and I want you to take a look at two resumes. I want to put your recruiter hat on, and I want you to just quickly digest this. I'll give you 6 seconds. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Awesome. What do you all think about that resume? Did you like resume? And if so, what resume stood out to you? The left or the right-hand side? Take a second to think through it. What job were they going for? If you were to pinpoint one specific job for each of those resumes, what would it be? So let's quickly talk about this. On the left-hand side, you see here that there's an account manager, is a business strategist role at Snap, and it's quite unclear and very unstructured as to what this person has done in their role. They made recommendations on strategy under Convoso. They proactively analyze and optimize client campaigns. Great. What campaigns? What platforms? What does optimize mean? What does analyze mean? What did you analyze for? Right? Why is own all aspects of the client's performance bigger than the other? And you may think these things are small details, but you have to realize we don't know what small details the recruiters are going to be focusing on. Right? And on the right-hand side, we see a resume that's a little bit more built out, which is great. On the right-hand side, you see the education, the work experience, leadership, and skills and interests. It is extremely clear what I'm reading in each of those sections, which as a recruiter or a hiring manager, I'm so pleased about because I only have a few seconds to go through one resume out of 1,000. So if I'm curious about this person's leadership experience or when they graduated college or their work experiences, I'm going to look at those respective sections. I know exactly what locations they've worked, how long they've worked at each job, what job titles they were, and more importantly, I know exactly where the bullet points are. So if I'm ever curious as to, okay, what did the person on the right do at Kohl's? Okay, they were store management. What does store management mean? Okay, so they analyze financial statements, collaborate with senior management, and so on and so forth. You want to show hiring managers and recruiters exactly what details, the details of your resume that are relevant and important for the job that you're going for. And second, you want to make it easy to digest. So, I'm back. You may recall we quickly talked about this at the beginning of the presentation, but how long does it take for recruiters or hiring managers to read resumes? I hope you all are screaming the answer. I hope you all are screaming, Jerry, it's 6 seconds, 10 seconds, a few seconds. And if that's you, you're absolutely right. And so let's continue playing this recruiter game. I'm going to show you resumes. I'm going to take it away from the screen, and I'm going to ask you, what did you think? Let's get started. Resume number 1, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great. What did you think about the resume? What job titles were they going for? How many years of experience do they have? What was their university degree? If that wasn't blaringly clear or obvious, then you're not crazy, right? It's because the format of the resume is a little bit hard to digest very quickly because you have to orient yourself and figure out, okay, this is a new template. Because it's a new template, I gotta figure out where I'm reading what. And so on the left-hand side, you can see this person is a social media marketing manager. They do marketing and operations. On the right-hand side, it seems like they're a college student just graduating with some university experience, and they were food and server. What job titles are they going for? On the left-hand side, we can see that they probably want to go into social media, but on the right-hand side, what do they want to go for? They have a BA in communications. They've done operations. It's not 100% clear. You want to make sure, again, your formatting is correct, but most importantly, you have a focus for each of your resumes. All right, let's try with this resume. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Tell me, what job was this person going for? How many years of experience? What impact did they make at their most recent job? Do any of these, and again, after reading your resume, you should be able to answer each and every single one of those questions just like that. So going back to this, we can see here that their work experience, process associate, customer auditor, and they're most recently a co-founder. It seems like they were a social media consultant under the professional summary, marketing strategies, right? So this resume has more structure, which I really like. But a big area of improvement for this candidate is for them to consolidate their story on their resume, right? Their summary says that they were a social media consultant, experienced in customer service, employee relations, marketing, HR. I mean, I could see that they're passionate about social media given their summary, but where are they passionate within their bullet points? Where have they shared that experience, right? So remember, just because a resume looks good, we have to make sure the content also looks good as well. And so let's go over the last resume. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. This resume is a little bit more clear, has a very well-defined structure, and most importantly, the bullet points show a lot of impact. Under the first experiences, generated reports. Second, collaborated with senior management. And third, strategized ideas for a niche market. Cole's department, analyzed financial statements, collaborated with senior management, and evaluated 100 plus employees. So this person clearly has analytics experience, operations, and those two seem to be the biggest functions. And then we go into their leadership experiences, which look like they've done a number of partnerships. And so while this resume has a really built out, beautiful resume template, their bullet points do suggest that they do want to go into a more analyst role, or perhaps in the marketing field, or perhaps in an operation analytics role. That's what the bullet points scream. And just because your job title doesn't say that, your bullet points are what should scream, the job title that you're going for. So overall, this is a much better resume. And again, everybody, remember about the 6-second rule. If there's anything that you remember from this, it is the 6-second rule. Okay, so let's quickly talk about resume bullet points, because resume bullet points, as you can tell, it is a crux, it is the meat, it is the thing that people look at to determine whether or not they want to hire you. So let's dive straight in. So you can see the example that we shared here above. Made reports to conduct analysis and research. What reports? What analysis? What research? Identifying target markets. Okay, I recognize the impact. To optimize websites, introduce stamp cards. It seems like they've tried to fit 3 different unique ideas under one bullet point. Each of those should be unique bullet points, but they should only be added if they're relevant to the job title that they're going for. Second bullet point, work with the team. Which specific team? Raise awareness on social media? Okay, which social media platforms? What techniques? How many followers weekly? Right. One thing we say at Google is if you can't measure it, how do we know you've actually done it? And again, I recognize that's an exaggeration, and of course, you don't have to measure everything for you to make impact, but the general thesis is still there. The general idea is still there. So this is an example of how we can improve the bullet points. You can see here we've color coordinated each part of the bullet point to showcase what improvements you can make on your bullet point. So for example, action verbs, we highlighted that in teal. Quantifiable impact is in red. Green is in hard skills, responsibilities in the blue text, and result, the impact of like the so what is in the orange. Same thing here. I want you all to think about, read these bullet points. Let's go to the second bullet point, for example. Gave research and data to advisors to bring the accounting firms to recruit students. How would you improve this bullet point? I'll give you a second for you to think about this, of how exactly you would improve this. I'll give you 10 seconds. All right. If you thought about these questions that we have listed above, what type of research? What type of data? What do you mean by gave? Did you analyze and then done something? Advisors, who are the advisors? What accounting firms? What recruit what students? How many students? How many firms? Then you're on the right track. I want you all to go through your resume bullet points and ask these questions. If someone who didn't know anything about you read your bullet points, would they understand exactly what you've done? Let me know. Another example. So one of the most common questions that we get when we talk about resume bullet points is, well, Jerry, my role, we can't quantify it. There's no way. I was a food server and it's just not possible. Well, here's a perfect example of how you can quantify anything. Served customers receive tips. Goal. Would you rather have that, or would you rather say served 25 plus customers daily during peak work hours, providing exceptional customer service would lead to an increase of 13% in sales? Which of these bullet points stand out to you? The first or the second? Hopefully you say the second, because the second is much more clear, specific, and most importantly, it has impact numbers. So a couple of the most common questions that we get. The first question we get, what happens if I don't know the numbers? My best answer to you is estimate them. So for example, if you were, let's say you were in accounts receivable, and your job was to figure out, hey, how do we increase the number of people who pay on time, for example? You could quantify a number of things. How many people were you talking to? How much money did you actually generate or bring into the company? How many did you actually process? How quickly were you able to do it? How quickly were people doing it before, and now? How quickly were people doing it before, and how quickly you're doing it now? Right? Estimate. What happens if I don't have a lot of info? If you don't have a lot of info, consolidate and condense. And you might be asking, well, Jerry, I don't want to remove anything. You're right, don't remove anything. But you want to only show the most relevant bullet points to the job title that you're going for. Right? And the last thing here is, as important as resumes are, you have to remember that's only one part of the job search. Don't spend too much time focusing on the resume, where the resume might get you the interview, but if you haven't done any interview prep, it won't matter how perfect your resume is, because your interviews you won't pass the interviews, right? All right, let's take a breather. We've done a great job so far. We've talked about resumes, and I want to quickly round out and just quickly talk about cover letters. Okay? Take a deep breath in, and take a deep breath out. The fact that you all are here today thinking about your resumes and cover letters tell me that you're incredibly motivated. You want to do better for yourself, because it's so important, because the two main variables that matter and whether or not you get a job is time and effort. As long as you do those two things, you're going to get a job. Okay, so let's talk about cover letters. I'll give you 10 seconds for you to quickly read through cover letter 1 and cover letter 2. You tell me what you think about each of these cover letters. Give you all a second. Great. Okay. All right. Let's quickly talk about them. So, cover letter 1, you can see here that it is just a big block of text. Very hard to consume by the recruiter and hiring team, and it is very unclear how to digest this information. Whereas on cover letter 2, you can see here that it is incredibly well structured. You start off the cover letter by telling the hiring teams exactly what role you're interested in. You then quickly run through the high-level bullet points of your resume, why that makes you qualified for this role, and most importantly, you want to dive deep into specific characteristics and skills that you can bring directly to the table if you were to start on day 1. Right? And so, a couple questions for you, a couple things you want to consider. 1, you absolutely want to make the cover letter personal to the job that you're applying to. Again, that doesn't mean you can't templatize these. That doesn't mean that you can't borrow the paragraphs that you use in cover letter number 1 or cover letter number 2. Just make sure you change your company names, maybe change your skills, couple sentences here and there, that's it. Second thing is why you. Again, people have looked at your resume, but cover letter is a perfect example for you to dive deep into a specific story or a project that you've worked on that is most relevant. Right? You want to share up to 2 examples max, because you almost want to think this as like a pre-interview, right? The rest of it is make sure that short, simple, sweet. Do not make it more than 1 page because, again, chances are cover letters may get read, may not be getting read, depending on the company, but you definitely want to make sure it's good enough to be passable. And so diving straight into the actual cover letter here, the why you can see here on the second paragraph that we highlight very specifically what we can do as candidates for this company. And the second thing is we highlight 2 specific skills relevant to the job and share examples. Within each of those examples, you want to make sure you talk about the context, contributions, and impact. So essentially, it's expanding on the resume bullet points that you have shared. Again, you want to keep these concise, you want to keep these story-driven, and most importantly, you want to show the impact. And most importantly, you can see here at max, each section doesn't have more than 7 to 8 lines, and the most meaty section is the examples, which exactly what it should be. And so as you think about the cover letters now try to think about what the differences are between cover letter 1 and cover letter 2. It puts a unique spin on how you're able to look at this and to judge, is this good? Is this a good cover letter or a bad cover letter? If we're able to do that for you today, then we have accomplished our job, and that wraps up our presentation today. Thank you so much for joining in here. I hope you learned a little bit about what a good resume is, a good cover letter is, but most importantly, how to think about these. My last piece of advice to you all is just make sure that you know finding a job is truly a function of time and the amount of effort that you put in. How willing you are to accept feedback, how much you're willing to just change variables, apply to jobs, network with people, reach out, prep. I know that it's a very rejection-first process. You have to fight through all the no's for you to get 1 yes, but the beauty of that process is you only need 1 yes. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope you're enjoying remote works, and until next time, thank you.